Okay, so we're to section 3.3, which is actually your last section, and we want to make sure that you have everything, all the activities done for 3.1 and 3.2 done before you continue to this last section. Okay, and this last section is going to be similar to what you've done, so we're still going to be solving inequalities, but this time you're going to have negative coefficients. So if you remember, a coefficient would be something like this. You have a variable, and then this is your coefficient. So it's when you have a negative in front of that number. So there's something weird with inequalities that you're going to have to do for this section. So, and as always, we're going to be graphing them like we've been doing. So you're probably sick of this, but let's do our symbols. This should be a no-brainer by now. Greater than, or equal to. Remember, when you graph them, there's specific rules. So these would be a closed circle. These would be an open circle. These you would shade everything less than, and then these you would shade everything greater than. Okay, so don't forget that when you're graphing. So what is the big deal about negative coefficients? Well, whenever you see them, you are going to flip that inequality sign. And maybe you remember this from last year. Whenever you have, whenever you multiply, I'm going to abbreviate here, multiply or divide an inequality by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. And you're probably like, what the heck are you talking about? Flip the inequality. This will make more sense once we get into it. I'm sure you'll remember it from years past. But let's just kind of get into some examples so you know what the heck I'm talking about. So number one, this is what I'm talking about with negative coefficients. So right here you should know that this is where my funky rule, where I'm going to have to flip the inequality sign, is going to happen. Okay? But you might not know that until you get into the actual solving process. So remember from the previous lesson that in order to get the x by itself, you're just going to do the opposite. So this one I'm going to divide by a negative 3. So I have x is greater than negative 4. Now after you solve inequalities, you should always ask yourself, did I multiply or divide by a negative number? And you did. We divided by a negative 3. So if that's the case, then the funky rule says that you're going to have to flip that inequality symbol. So this greater than changed to less than. Okay, and that's really the only difference from yesterday and today. So if I'm going to graph this now, remember we do our 0, our positive 4, sorry, and then our negative 4. We're going to have an open circle. Oh my goodness, you guys, I don't have my brain with me right now. So you have an open circle at negative 4, and you're going to shade everything less than that. So that would mean you'd go this way. Okay. Next one, I don't see a negative coefficient yet, but sometimes they pop up at strange times. So I want to get this x by itself. So to do that, I'm going to add 2, do the opposite. So I have 4x is greater than negative 20. Okay, and then I'm going to keep doing the opposite. Divide by 4. So I have x is greater than negative 5. So you might be thinking, well, I have to flip. I see a negative. Well, it's not just if your answer is negative. It has everything to do with whether or not you multiplied or divide by a negative. And if you look here, I divided by a 4, but the 4 wasn't negative. So that means that you do not have to flip the sign for this one. Okay, so that's just a normal inequality that you're trying. All right, so that's nice and easy. So we're going to graph it. We have 0, positive 5, negative 5. And we're going to have another open circle at negative 5. And x is greater than, so you're going to shade everything greater than negative 5. So that's one where you didn't have to do the new rule that we were talking about. All right, our last one, this one's a little bit more complicated because we see that we have variables on both sides. So before you start getting those by itself, remember left is best. You want to get your variables to one side, so I would subtract 4a on both sides. So you're left with negative 2a minus 11 is greater than or equal to 7. So now we still have to keep getting that a by itself, and I might already point out that it looks like I have a negative coefficient, so that might be a heads up to me that I might have to do this funky rule. So let's keep solving. So we keep doing the opposite, so add 11. So we have negative 2a is greater than or equal to 18. Keep doing the opposite, divide, do the opposite, both sides. So we have a is greater than or equal to negative 9. So remember, always ask yourself if you have to do the funky rule. So I would look here, did I multiply or divide by a negative number? And I did. So that means I'm going to have to do my funky rule. So this is going to change to a is now less than or equal to negative 9. So this is just one of those math rules that we don't quite know why we have to do this, but it's just in the rule books that that's the weird rule for inequalities. So you have your 0, positive 9, negative 9. So it's going to be a closed circle this time at negative 9 because it could be equal to that. We're going to shade everything less than, so it would go that way. Okay? I think you have some problems to try on your own. Yes, you do. So I'd like you to try these three. Notice I gave you a break here. You don't have to, oh, I didn't. I'm not that nice. So I want you to graph them too. So try these on your own, get your answers, and then answer the questions on the form here and see how you did. All right?